Hello, Naomi.
Hello, Nina.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you. Naomi, what do you know about the patience pole?
So I know it's a tool used by a lot of trainers to teach the horse to stand still, patiently in one place for God knows how long, in whatever location.
Have you ever seen any of those extremely disturbing videos of horses being left there to their own devices?
No, I'm scared.
You draw the line. You draw the line there.
I've seen enough videos.
Well, I have unfortunately seen a few of them, and let's just imagine like what happens. Okay, so here's a young horse, because obviously it's going to be most likely a young horse that hasn't learned to stand yet, and the trainer takes it to this pole, which is probably away from the barn and away from distractions, ties it there, generally with no food, with no water, no other horses nearby, and no distractions around it, and then leaves it there. Sometimes actually leaving, I've heard trainers leaving the property, and they'll let that horse stand on that pole for anywhere from 3, 6, I've heard even a whole day, just standing there the whole day. And the belief is that, sure, they're going to dig and they're going to paw and they're going to pull and they're going to do a whole battery of things, but eventually they're going to see that none of that worked and they still have to stand there. So they might as well not waste their energy and just stand there. What do you think about that?
I will say this again, I've said it before, I think the litmus test for if something is ethical or not, or if something is abusive when you're training, is if it is forcing an animal to go against its instincts that it has evolved to have for thousands of years to protect itself, and you're forcing that animal to go against all of those instincts that give it its driving purpose, its existence, just like we have instincts, then that is unethical training.
It is absolutely, and knowing full well, if it's one thing even the most novice instructor knows, the flight-fright mechanism. A horse gets scared and they want to flee first and ask questions later. And if you take that away from them, that is like, again, trying to stop a wave from breaking on the sand. It goes against everything about the nature of it.
It will create trauma. There's no way you can force an animal to go against instincts that it's evolved with over thousands of years and force them to go against it, and it doesn't create trauma. It will create trauma for them.
So here's what one of those trainers will tell you, because I've seen it. I've heard it and I've seen it on social media. My horses aren't traumatized. They're quiet and they're calm and they're champions and they win everything. And they don't seem to understand the difference between a calm, quiet champion and learned helplessness. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They don't even want to understand what learned helplessness is. And I think even if they understood what it was, they would certainly say, oh, but that's not my horse. I didn't create learned helplessness. Oh no, not me. What would you say to a person like that? What have we said to people like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a cognitive dissonance, I think. You don't see it when you're the one doing it. Or it's called it's called Disney Princess Syndrome.
Oh.
Where it's like you always are viewing yourself as the protagonist and the other person as the antagonist. So it's like, if we're gonna get biblical, it's like people always want to see themselves as like the Israelites that are fleeing Egypt and never the Egyptians.
Right. Everybody's going to be the victim and a martyr, and certainly not the aggressor.
Put yourself in the Disney princess role.
I love that, and I had heard that term, but I was not sure what it referred to. So thank you for clarifying that. Yes, that's absolutely true. I was having a very interesting thread with someone who a girl had said, I'm having trouble leading my horse. My horse doesn't listen when he's on the lead line. What did this lady suggest? Instead of suggesting training or maybe trying to do some work, liberty, back to the lead line, back to liberty, I mean, anything productive that this woman could have suggested, no. She said, put a stud chain on him. After you give him a couple good yanks, he'll listen. You almost want to say that that's a joke, right? Someone's doing that to stir some controversy or to make a dark joke. People actually still do these things.
Yeah, and the horse was probably nervous to begin with, which is why she was struggling with him.
Or uneducated, just uneducated.
Didn't know, but it's like by doing that, she's creating more trauma, and I feel like you cannot, it was either you or me that said this, but you cannot train out trauma.
That is right. I think we both said it at different times.
Yeah, you can't train out trauma, and if you try to to correct the behavior before healing the trauma, you're just gonna create more trauma and make the animal anxious.
There was another thread last week where a girl was having trouble putting her horse on the trailer. And boy, oh boy, she posted a bunch of videos. She had created such a mess out of this. Was so angry, like I got elevated when I watched her. I got nervous. I wanted to run away from her when I saw what she was doing. She made herself so unlikable to that horse. I don't know why we would have done anything for her. I suggested to her, leave that trailer alone for 30 or 60 days if you don't have to go anywhere. Don't even go look at that trailer. He needs to sort of forget and reset with that trailer. It's like you can't just keep piling it on.
Yeah, if you don't have the patience to heal the trauma or to meet the horse where they're at and work slowly, why are you training? If you just want instant results, that's not training. That's like you want to program a machine. But horses aren't machines, and we can't work with them like machines.
Yes, and why would we want to? Especially when they have such a beautiful, intimate relationship to offer. Why would we want things to be quick fixes and, oh, make this happen in 5 days and make this happen in 15 days and 20 days to this? Like, why would we want that? Why don't we look at it as a lifetime of learning with a partner, with a loving partner?
Yeah, and I have one more question. Back to the patience poll thing. Coyotes.
Oh, a lot of them.
Yeah, my question is, everybody seems to be so obsessed with the idea of the horse being able to be tied up for long periods of time, but under what circumstances is that necessary? And should you be doing that at all?
Both really good questions. So, A, camping, or overnighting for if you do have a ranch and you have to go out onto your land somewhere and you need to stay the night. A lot of it is for like overnighting, I guess. That's why people use hobbles and want horses to stand for long periods of time, as if they're camping and they're going to be somewhere. Okay, there's one reason people will say. How many of us are really doing that, though? Millions of equestrians in the world. How many of us really have that need?
And if you do, you could leave your horse at home. I go camping all the time.
But they're saying, oh, but we need our horse to get to this place or what have you.
Go camping somewhere else.
Right.
It's not worth putting your horse at risk.
There's always another adventure to have that you don't have to compromise your horse's comfort to go on an adventure.
It's like, do you want your horse to get attacked by bears and coyotes in the middle of the night? It's your choice to put yourself at risk, but it's not fair to force your animal to be at risk.
Another reason we want horses to stand for a long period of time is at the horse show, where they're tied to a trailer or in some situation where they have to be at the side of the arena and they have to wait for a really long time.
Because they're not prioritizing the horse's comfort, even though the horse is the one making the horse show possible. I feel like the horse's comfort should be prioritized over the human's comfort. They didn't even choose to be there.
Naomi, you just said something golden. Hey people, there's no horse show without the horse. I mean, let's face it, there's no rodeo without the horse. There's no polo without the horse. When will we wake up and see that we need to start treating them a whole lot better? Because they are a huge part of this equation for the equestrian. Without a horse, there is no equestrian.
Yeah, and people, I feel like as a whole in the industry, are proving that they are incapable of having these events while treating the animals fairly. And so because of that, I don't think they should be having them until people can collectively evolve to the point that they can do events like that, treating the horse fairly and safely and prioritizing the horse's comfort. It's like a kid without the toy. If you can't play with it correctly, I don't think you should have it.
I think it's an excellent point. And I think there are people out there now that are speaking the same language as we are. I don't think, maybe like 10 years ago, we would have been like strung up, tarred and feathered. But there are people that are beginning to speak that language. I mentioned it in one of the other talks. The upcoming Olympics, they are actually trying to make it a more ethical Olympics. They are looking at things right now to try to make it better for the horses, how to make it more comfortable for the horses. I don't know how far they'll get, but literally any improvement at this point
Exactly.
would be a step up for the horse.
I'm hoping that with the advent of so much stuff, especially since COVID, so much stuff being like recorded and on video and over Zoom, like if that could like infiltrate the equestrian world, it could make moving horses around like a lot less necessary, because that's very stressful for a horse.
Very. One last thing about back to the patience pole. When you do tie the horse to the patience pole, and he does paw a huge Grand Canyon sized hole, or maybe injure himself, or get into a sweat and freak himself out, what does he think about you? The one that brought him there and tied him there and left him there. You know, what does that do to the relationship? Why would you want to chip away at your horse's trust like that?
Yeah, if you care, and I think that is the root of it, is like, does only what you think of your horse matter, or do you care what your horse thinks of you at all?
Well, we're losing our light, sadly, because this is a very, very good discussion. But I think we got a lot covered. So if you are enjoying our talks, please subscribe. And please comment, especially if you have a different opinion, because again, that's how we learn more about what everybody's thoughts are and how to come to a change. You know, if we're only interested in our side of it and you're only interested in your side of it, and we don't exchange those sides, we don't really come to anything ever. So we need to interact to be able to make changes. Naomi, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me.